I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite
podcast
on the Citadel.
You are listening to Accidentally Casual, a podcast for gaming nerds. My name is Minius of Minius GC, and with me is Tucker from Talking About Games.
Hello.
Scott is out this week. He got called into work off schedule, and he is more disappointed than you are about that.
Yeah, especially because he found out it was like this morning.
Yeah,
or something.
well, we moved this recording schedule to fit something, and then he's still, whatever. I'm sure that a lot of you can relate. And I've been able to relate at some point. They're like, hey, you need to go into work right now. Like, no, I don't want to do that. But we are still recording now because we want to get that Wednesday release time consistently. We've actually done a really good job of hitting the point that we want to hit. I'm surprised.
Well, I like how you say that we're trying to hit a release schedule consistently. And
it changes.
Except it changes. We hit a podcast a week. But, that release date, the consistency, there's an asterisk next to that, and that asterisk is holding a lot of work right there.
Well, the issue is, like, we said, okay, we want to hit this date, and we hit it every single time, but it was a different date for us. And more specifically, we moved it this last time because we had it dropped Thursday for like a month and a half straight at exactly the same time, but Scott needs to record on a different day, so we moved it. So eventually we will find a spot, and right now it's Wednesday. I think Wednesday is going to work. We're going to see. Anyway, so check on Wednesdays. Also, couple quick notes. We have a Discord community.
Yes.
There's a link in the description box.
And I want to, there's a few things with that Discord chat that it is a lot of fun. There's, I think, 68 of us in there, so, it'd be nice if you join. Make that number nice number. But we've talked about things like, so one person in there was drawing Mass Effect characters as Pokemon, like Jack as a Magikarp, or not Jack as a Magikarp. Trying to see if I could find it.
I will not be able to help you with Pokemon stuff. I'm like 3 or 4 years too old for Pokemon.
But we've talked about that. We constantly talk about Mass Effect. There's where just the group, someone just brings up a topic and other people talk about it. We've talked about movies and TV shows like Godzilla and Star Trek, the MCU.
I've noticed we have a section in there for asking questions on the podcast, and I go in there whenever someone asks a question, it always gets answered, and I'm like, and then it gets buried. I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't quite working how I thought it would work.
What we were talking about earlier today were biscuits and gravy and stuff, because there's some British people in there, and they were talking about biscuits, and I'm from the South, so I was talking about biscuits, and that was very different.
Are you trying to get people into it, or?
We were just having casual conversations. People were making jokes.
There's a bunch of different channels, so you can pay attention to what you want to pay attention to.
It's fun. It's pretty decent. And
so
I have a plan to do a Mass Effect remaster giveaway when it gets a bit closer to release.
Yeah, and I will be giving away a copy of the new art book, at least one, for something, because that art book, that was really cool. It's supposed to be coming out very soon, I believe. Is
it not coming out the same day as the remaster?
It wasn't, and I'm going to check now and see if they changed the release date. Because the original release date for the new art book, which has new concept art and unreleased stuff, was actually this month. And the remaster now is all the way back to May, and I'm pretty sure that was not the original plan. But yeah.
The remaster is coming out in May, and that is a bit later than I was expecting.
Yeah, but we were both convinced that they were going to hit that right with the EA financial quarter. Right? I was 100% convinced they were going to, no matter what, push that out.
Although, I've been looking at more pictures comparing images from the Mass Effect Legendary trailer and what the game is, the original game. The minute details that are updated are incredible. when in Mass Effect 1 when the Normandy is firing at Sovereign. Or
Spoilers!
Arbiter? Can't.
No, I'm just fucking kidding. If you're in here and you haven't played the Mass Effect games, I don't know what to do for you.
But like in the original, when the Normandy is going up and kind of flips around and zooms back towards the Reaper, there's no particle effects on the back of the ship. But in the Legendary Edition, there's little bits of the engine flares up a little bit, kind of showing that Joker is making minute change details. Like it's like a small thing like that.
So I am.
There's a picture of Thane.
I am actually replaying the trilogy right now in 4K because I didn't realize I could do that on the PC with the base version, and I want to look at that and compare it to the new ones. So I'm midway through Mass Effect 1. We'll see if that's there. I don't think it is. It's actually actually a big pump up because what you played it on the 360, right?
Yes.
And I originally played the first game on PC, but I played it in lower specs than your 360.
If it was at that time.
It was a little bit afterwards, but my PC was way older than that, so I played it on a 4x3 monitor. It was funny. But the issue is like the best that could do was what, like 720p? Am I right in that? So just the jump from that to 4K is a big deal.
I don't know what the PC resolution.
Well, I mean on the Xbox 360
on the Xbox, yeah, I think it was 720.
Yeah, 720. The PS3 was definitely 720. Although that was a port that came out much later.
Yeah, it didn't launch on the PlayStation 3, but I also played it backwards compatible on the Xbox One, and I think
that's up-resed a little bit, right? It's not actually redone. It's just run through a program that up-res it. You can up-res it all the way.
Yeah,
high.
It's through AI that will kind of do that, and then there are people that will test it to make sure that things are proper, and if anything isn't done right, then someone will manually go in and fix some things.
So more specifically, I got the release date of that book is still apparently February 23rd. So that's a full on like almost 3 months before the release of the remaster.
I mean, what's it going? Is it going? I don't think it's going to spoil anything in the remaster. It's going to make everything.
You think
look
it'll tell guys? The Reapers built the mass relays. What? No spoilers. You think it's going to do that? I mean, you didn't know the Reapers built the mass relays in one of your videos.
Well, no. In my in my most popular video.
Oh no, it was in that one too.
Oh yeah, no, it was the comparing. I mean, it's still one of my favorite ideas for a video. It was comparing our real history to the history as it happened in the Mass Effect universe. So, like, while we were having this stuff happen in Rome in like 300 BC or whatnot, this Krogan War was going on.
Yeah, I remember that video.
It was just, yeah, I love that idea. But my God, I made mistakes.
Yeah.
In that.
I tried very hard recently to do a comparison video, and the more I look at it, the less I like it. I don't have the software for it, so I need to relearn. I'm going to get much better software and try to learn how to do that. But I was
what do you mean you don't have the software for a comparison video?
I mean, my video editing software is pretty generic. So, like, there's only so many things I can do with it, and I tried very hard, and it's still... I mean, there are people who do those comparison videos. They're damn good at it. So I'm trying to up my skill set. I was not damn good at it, and I tried to get it out fast, and it shows. So
I'm kind of sad because the editing software I use, I was pretty happy with, but now, like, certain things I want to do with it, it doesn't work as much, and it's Filmora, what I've been using. So now I'm looking at, like, Adobe Premiere.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I tried using that before, and it is very confusing. Anyway, that's very, very, very specific.
It is a more...
It's a highly not professional, also highly expensive program.
Is it highly expensive? I know there's like a free trial of it. I was going to try.
That's neat. The free trial is free, but it's just a trial. I mean, I believe it's at least, if you're just getting that, you can get it for $21 a month, and you have to do the monthly subscription thing.
Oof.
Yeah, and so that
you can't just like buy
that
it.
adds up. They don't just sell it anymore because they can make more money. by getting you on a subscription, so they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had like old versions of that full-on Creative Suite that you could buy for $300 and have it all. And yeah, they don't do that anymore. Anyway,
but another thing I wanted to bring up with the Mass Effect thing.
Is this not YouTube specific nerdy related? So we can get people back on track. Go ahead, I'll let you do it.
So Thane, the quick snapshot that we have of him in the remaster trailer, someone took a screenshot of the original one, put it next to it, and you can, again, the small details. If you look at his nails, you can see how they're sharper now, or they look less human-like. They look more unique or more alien.
Very interesting, because I know the main concept for that remaster was going over with actually an AI program that did most of it, but then they went back and they had human artists touch up stuff. So I wonder how much of that was done there.
Yeah. And if you look again, like Thane, if you look around the lips, if you look around the nose, his gills are a lot more colorful, or they stand out a bit more. It like the small detail. If you just take a quick look at it, I can see how some people are like, "Oh, it looks the same." But if you actually If you have them side by side and you're really looking at them.
Especially going through with the old resolution. I mean, the jump up from 720 to 3800 or 4K, it's so big.
But it just makes me so excited that the small details, because I hope that that's not just cutscene. I hope that's the actual models that they've
It's difficult to get a very good look at those characters, though. In game, I suppose you can, like, when you're exploring one of the hubs, you can stop, turn around, and look at them, and occasionally talk to them. So that might be a way to do that.
Yeah, like if you're in a normal conversation with them, not a cutscene conversation, but if they're on the ship and you're just talking to them.
There's still part of my brain, and there's almost no way they're doing this, but there's part of my brain that says, oh, they're going to make story changes even though they didn't, and try to set up the next Mass Effect game. So I'm slightly afraid I'm going to blitz through this thing and miss a lot of stuff.
Do you think that they might not do this with the remaster? They maybe might do this with the new Mass Effect, but I would be really excited with this either way. But what would your thoughts be if they added a photo mode in either the remaster or the new Mass Effect?
It's not in the remaster for sure. They said that, but the new game.
Oh, they've said that they're not. I didn't know about that.
The budget for that remaster seems very, very small, and that's fine. Okay. But for a remaster, but how standard is that in games that are coming out recently? Because I know most of the games I play are PlayStation games, and every PlayStation exclusive has that now.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how standard.
Like the photo mode, and I couldn't believe how much stuff was in that. In Ghost of Tsushima, they spent so much time on it. You can do so many cool things.
Yeah, I don't know how standard it is becoming, because I know that it's been in some games like
it's been around since at least a couple generations ago.
Well, I would say I think maybe Halo 3 may be one of the ones that made it popular with theater mode to begin with.
The same guys that did Ghost of Tsushima were doing it on the PS3, if I remember correctly.
But I'm trying to think of the version of photo mode that we have now, where you essentially pause the game,
and then you can look at
action.
a full 3D model of the whole thing, right?
Yeah,
and then change the angle and the lighting and that kind of stuff.
I don't think it's the first one to do it, but Shadow of War, I think that was a big one that did it. I think that was like a part of a trailer that they may have talked about. You're a big Lord of the Rings fan.
Talking about the Middle-earth game?
Yeah. Okay. That's something I don't know if people know. You're a big Lord of the Rings fan.
Very big. Not playing the games, though.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Because it's not canon and not done by Tolkien. So I get upset. I become a snob about it. There are a lot of snob Lord of the Rings fans. I'm one of those.
I mean, the game is phenomenal.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. I have it. I just haven't played it. I'm just they're making changes. I'm going to get mad. Like the Hobbit movies, man. Oh, I got so mad at those Hobbit movies.
Oh,
well,
that is
I
fair.
didn't even
Hobbit
finish it.
movies-
They stretched the smallest book into 3 movies, and I started getting so mad I couldn't finish it. They just like adding characters and change. I'm like, no. So, and anyway,
it's also in Spider-Man. Although that's much more recent, but that one and Cyberpunk. I've been having so much fun with Cyberpunk's photo mode. So I have one of my favorite photos I took recently is my V sitting crouched next to this monk who's praying out that you can just see the desert and all the stuff across from it, and I changed added some effects to make it just visually look better. Absolutely love it.
there's the next step of that where it should be able to capture I guess 15 seconds of gameplay or not, and then allow you to zoom in and out in the camera angles. I'm assuming that can be done now with the technical specs. So you can
the PlayStation and the Xbox have native recordings.
Right, but it's not just recording a single camera angle. It would be recording the entire 3D model and then allowing you to go back in time and switch it and go back and forth with that kind of stuff. So you can get the reverse angle of it or an over-the-head angle of it and zoom in. And
have you ever played Halo 3?
Nope.
What? So Halo 3 had theater mode, which pretty much is, if I'm understanding what you're explaining, is pretty much what that is.
Okay.
It would save the entire match, and you can load up your previous match and look at it from anyone's perspective. You can free cam and position the camera
it's more of a
anywhere
free
you
cam
want and
type thing.
let the game play, and you could view all of that.
I imagine that's
this
a lot
was
easier to
2007.
That's a lot easier to do with the shooter than it is with other games. But yeah,
I don't know.
I just
if
imagine
the
like
genre
a Mass
has something
Effect.
to do with it.
Let's say Mass Effect did it in the next game, and
I would
and
love
they
that.
got
Liara would become a model
the
in that game for me.
The cutscenes, you could go full free camera after you watch them. That would be fun. That seems like way too much work.
Cutscenes would be difficult because typically,
I know
cutscenes
why.
are very forced in what you're
no,
watching. So
I'm
there's a lot
asking
of-
for too much. There are other things I would rather have them do.
But what Cyberpunk does is it kind of keeps you in a first person perspective. So maybe something like that. But I would very much like that if the new Mass Effect had a photo mode.
I think
or
it
had
might
something like
because
that.
a lot of people are asking for it, and I'm not sure it's that difficult as far as new features go.
I'm not sure about the difficulty of it.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure, but I think it would be relatively easy to add compared to other things that you could add.
In another game, I wish would add photo mode or some sort of theater mode like what Halo 3 had would be Rainbow Six Siege. Because I feel like that would be really fun. Just how that game is set up and everything like that, to have a free cam mode where you can watch how the game played out. But I don't know if they'll add that. It's a very competitive game.
How old is that game now?
Siege came out 2016.
They're still promoting that as a competitive thing, though. I see that frequently.
Oh yeah, well, they add new operators to it. What Siege? It's a Tom Clancy.
I'm
thing
aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just add new operators, add new maps. They are doing a thing this weekend or over the next few weekends that are special. It's a special map for the tournament that they have going on with the MLG stuff, and the map's a lot of fun. And I enjoy the game.
Does Tom Clancy's estate still make money off that? Because he passed away a number of years ago.
I think it does.
Is it or did they pay him a huge upfront money and then he went and spent it on weird stuff, and that's it, and they get his name forever? I'm curious.
I don't know, but when I lived in South Carolina, at one point I was in a plantation, and the plantation had a golf course, and there was a plaque there of everyone who got a hole-in-one. My name is on there because I got a hole-in-one in one of the
Sweet,
holes.
high five.
But there's a person there whose name was Tom Clancy, and I have no idea if it is the same Tom Clancy.
I assume that's a common enough name.
I mean,
Tom is a pretty common name. Clancy is a somewhat common name. There's got to be more than one Tom Clancy. Like frequently more, not possibly. I think it's very good. We probably have a
but
there's a chance there's a Tom Clancy listening.
Let us know.
No, that someone's just going to say they're Tom Clancy and lie.
That's fair.
So to get into what we were talking about, normally we were talking about the Mass Effect remaster. It's coming out in May, and absolutely nobody has any complaints about anything in it, right?
No. There's some complaints.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, we're gamers.
There's controversy. What?
Would it not be a BioWare game without controversy? If the fans were not upset at BioWare, would it not be a true BioWare game?
This is a topic I was going to get into, but it is a question from Nike2727 who sent me a tweet, which is a very good way to ask questions on the podcast. The question is the Mass Effect fan base too crazy to please? They've gotten increasingly toxic since Mass Effect 3, and this silly Buttgate controversy has me more worried about how they'll react even if BioWare produces a fun and well-written game for Mass Effect 4.
I mean,
I think it's more than just the Mass Effect fan base, right?
Yeah, I would say it's the gaming community in general of the loud minority.
Yeah, I don't. It may not be as much of a minority as you think, but it is a stupid thing to get mad about, given that there are real things going on, and I think a lot of people funnel their frustration about real world stuff into dumb gaming stuff.
I think this is just what happens when you have a series that has been around for so long and enjoyed for so long.
I think,
and then it's just the idea.
There's been
or the fact
couple things that have gone wrong with Mass Effect, and that's really made them an easy target. I mean, Mass Effect Andromeda, we both agree, was actually quite a fun game, right? Yeah. They lost the narrative on that so quickly. Like before the game came out,
DLC
and there was
or anything,
and it was they could not get it back. So,
but they're not doing any DLC or like. It seems like they've just completely dropped Andromeda.
Yeah, they definitely have.
Like, no.
That's not specifically what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about, like, even in the weeks coming out, the toxicity and hate for that game was so high. Like, I was like, whoa, really? You haven't played the game yet? And I think a lot of people, like, they just looked at it and focused on animations, which weren't there.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's why I'm more concerned. If you don't know what's going on, there are a lot of scenes in Mass Effect 2 specifically designed for people like me, where there's just a huge close-up of Miranda's ass. And it is an absolutely phenomenal ass, but it is very distracting. So what they did in this remaster is, in at least one instance, change the camera angle when she's talking about a serious situation with her sister, who is being chased after by her crazy dad. By the way, her dad, really crazy. And it's related to her ass because he genetically engineered Miranda and insisted that she have an amazing ass. How creepy is that? Could you imagine if your dad, like, my daughter must have the most phenomenal ass ever? And
I mean, like,
I'm aware
like
that, but this is a guy, right? In Mass Effect 3, he lured refugees into a fake refugee camp and experimented on them, and I'm still more creeped out by the fact that he ordered his daughter's, like, genetically engineered ass and probably designed it himself.
Do you think he would bang Miranda?
Yes, 100%.
That's weird.
I agree.
But I mean, it makes sense that they're getting rid of her butt.
Well, I don't
thing with that.
First of all, I'm not sure they are. The character model stays in place, and so far all they've said is in this one instance when she's having a serious conversation that's backed off.
I can imagine that, because they've talked about that they're changing some of the scenes, that is one of the scenes that they're talking about.
So specifically the daughter one, the sister one.
That one makes sense. And, like, while it may be sort of symbolism of what they're meaning or anything like that, that will go over the majority of people's head, because what they'll just see in front of them are just two cheeks.
I will
right there.
make the case that Miranda is a much, much, much more interesting character than she ever gets credit for.
Sure,
And
but
the reason,
but this is basic.
the reason
human
is
nature
because her
of-
ass is in your face and you literally can't see around it because it's amazing. It's an amazing ass. It really is.
Yes, but
It's not real,
but
it is an
while
amazing
Miranda
ass.
is a great character, when there's a butt like that right in front of the camera,
yeah.
human nature kicks in to look at the butt.
And-
even if it's like a quick thing of that, it's still like butt.
So I want to have a
it's a good
conversation on this general topic because the impression I see some people getting is that this is being censored out for feminist motives, which I don't think you can confirm or deny. Certainly, there is a sliver of the gaming community that is very upset with the direction that BioWare is going. One of the more interesting comments, I had released a video that I'm very proud of about things that the next Mass Effect game needs. And I didn't pick up on this, but there actually is a significant chunk of the community that wants the game to up the sexiness. And there is a way to do that, but this is something I want to get a female perspective on. So we're going to try to get Secret Cat on the show for a specific show to talk about this with BioWare specifically.
The issue when you're adding romance or stuff to games is it needs to make sense in the story. If you're having nudity just for there to be nudity or stuff like that, then that's not good. But if it makes sense in the story, if it actually makes sense for what's going on, then that's fine. Kind of like what Game of Thrones did, or at least the first few seasons of Game of Thrones. The nudity in that, although it was over gratuitous with some of the nudity, it made sense when there was stuff going on. Like that was the time period, that was the culture, everything like that. So,
I think you could also argue that as the culture goes forward into the future, it will get more sexual again. A lot of universes that are there that are hypersexual.
Accepted.
The
more less of an issue, less of a culture issue, more commonly accepted.
I feel like the issue, if you're looking at that sexuality exactly in Mass Effect, is that it's exclusively stares at the females being sexual, not the males, and that's instead of changing in one direction and cutting it down, you should up it in the other direction.
I want Jacob's ass right in front and center of the screen.
It's just not very impressive. I mean, I'm sure it's impressive for a normal person, but his pants are, more tactical.
Yeah.
What if they just go with a jump-up junk shot of somebody, and then
So
you're gonna sidetrack. We were on a good conversation. I have one more.
No. It's on the same. It's on the same.
Okay.
Thing. Except I need to actually.
All right, I will say what I was going to say before you get to your thing. There are situations where that close-up shot of Miranda's ass, I believe, works in specific ways, specifically when she's trying to be sexy or intimidating.
Well, yeah, if someone's trying to be sexy, then that makes sense.
Like in that, then you just go like boom, and you're like, whoa, okay.
Well, that makes sense.
It is a genetically engineered character, and that is part of her character. But I understand where people on both sides are coming from. Again, I believe this is a really, really good future topic, specifically looking at BioWare, because some of the backlash they've gotten is specifically on the impression that they are trying to push an agenda. And whether or not that's true, I don't have the actual answer on that, but it is good to talk about that in games and media and art, specifically because this is a piece of art. And that ass actually is an artistic design.
Yes.
I mean, it was an artistic choice. Let's go with what you wanted to say.
I have a book of Universal
asses?
Principles of Design. Yes.
Please tell me it's asses.
No. That is a folder on my computer. I'm talking about a book
Okay.
I have here. Universal Principles of Design. And they talk about things like the waist to hip ratio, about like making an attractive character, of the preference for particular ratios of waist size to hip size in men and women. There's a thing called the attractive bias, or the attractiveness bias, which is a tendency to see attractive people as more intelligent, competent, morale, or sociable. There's a thing for the aliens in the game, the anthropomorphic form, which is the tendency to find forms that appear humanoid or exhibit human-like characteristics as appealing. And there's like all this kind of stuff that talks about how to make an attractive character.
You have talked about this
And all
specifically
that-
on the show before, and the character you always point out is Tally.
Yes.
Because Tally, if you want to talk about it, like her hips are out of proportion, and obviously she's not a human, but that's intentional to make you feel something. And while that is not her primary function as a character,
they had the intention to make her attractive.
I believe there are no shots of her ass when she's talking about something serious.
Tally? Maybe.
Yeah. She's like, "Oh, my father's doing horrific stuff," and they don't zoom in on her ass right there.
Well, I think.
Right?
Well, I think with
I don't
Miranda,
ever remember that. I think I would remember that, although Miranda's, I'm like, it's the most form-fitting design that she's got on.
Well, Miranda, her story is her body has been transformed.
Part of it, yeah.
So that would kind of make sense, because with Tally, they focus a lot on the mask, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
They'll have a lot of face shots for Tally, which don't even make sense because you can't see her face. Although, when someone's
you can
talking,
look in the eyes, and it's really the voice that carries that character.
But they're showing off more of the Korean, just what makes them different, because that's what they want to highlight. And this is just a guess of mine. If I could be completely talking out my ass, it's just an idea of like how you want to show off characters.
So we've tried to get Seeker on. We had a couple different, they were Dragon Age specific podcasts, but we tried to get Seeker on. I want to get Seeker on and have a specific discussion about this the whole way through. We've also tried to get Ability Drain on, and she is super busy now, so that's probably not going to happen. But and at that point, we will prompt out questions and have a full-on discussion about this specifically, looking at, I know you're not quite into this, but Dragon Age and Mass Effect and the future of BioWare games and the overall culture, because there's a huge culture shift going on in society that not everybody is cool with, because nobody is ever cool with shifting cultures, ever, in the history of humanity.
No, there's always...
They flip out. So,
well, progress is always pushed back, and what you need to do is find the middle ground of that as you work your way
that would
through.
be the purpose of the conversation, is finding a middle ground, because I would say that if you remove all of Miranda's butt shots...
what if you just get rid of her butt?
That is, like, you talking about, like, flatten it a little bit?
No, it's just gone.
Oh, like it's a midriff? There's nothing there?
It's just gone.
It's like so it's like her top to her waist, and then something invisible that sees right through it, and then her legs.
Yeah.
That would be hilarious. They should do that for a scene as a bug. Just to troll people. Just that.
No, it'd be like, all right, you guys complained when we changed the angle. We'll just get rid of it.
We'll just get rid of it entirely.
Yeah.
That's just like that.
Complain now.
That reminds me of the fourth ending that they added in the extended ending edition, where
is Miranda's.
No, it's I was like because everyone was complaining about it. If you shoot the Star Child because you're mad at what he has to say, then he kills everyone.
Oh.
But that would be something similar to that. That's what I'm saying, is they've done something similar to that in Pod.
But
in a serious note, before you go, the specific removal or changing of her ass or removing all those butt shots, I think would be negative for the future of Mass Effect, for the very simple point of just the negativity that comes out here. Of course, there's no way they can get over this negativity, but I would like to get into that specifically on our future podcast, where people can view. We have enough people on it to do contrasting views.
I think what might have been better is if BioWare didn't say anything about it. If they just let it happen. And then when it came out, if people pointed it out, then they could, because they're going to have to talk about it anyways post-release. So that seems like a controversy that they could have saved.
I have a theory that the people who are mad about this were never going to buy the game in the first place.
I mean, that could,
because they're already mad. So
that was my theory with Andromeda, where some of the people making fun of it and stuff.
Let's say they removed her close-up ass shot in one scene, and then it's in the others. Then they can get this out of the way and then release it, and people can see that it's not really that moved. Anyway, this was always going to happen, because no matter what, something was going to be a controversy and someone was going to get mad. I think the only thing, and I'm going to do a full-on video on this in the future, but the only thing that BioWare can do is just put out good games and change the culture, because reputations in game attacks, they can escalate so quickly. We're going to talk about something else in a bit. All right, Tucker, side tangent, go.
So, speaking of things that are perfectly spherical, there is a theory that our universe is a hypersphere.
Tucker, we're going to delay that conversation until the end of the show. We're not done with the news segment yet.
But I thought this what we're talking about, like spheres.
What?
It could be like a butt. Yeah, because it's a butt.
Because it's a butt. That's not a very good connection. What?
Miranda's butt might be
hold on.
so powerful that it is in of itself a hypersphere.
I have a whole set of like discussing
four-dimensional
connection news topics, and you just have to go off and do something ridiculous. Why? That is such a loose connection, man. Why?
I thought it was.
Why?
I thought it was a good connection because butt.
Okay, we'll get more into that later. The next thing, and this is actually I think more interesting Mass Effect news that nobody's paying attention to. They were one of the writers on Mass Effect Andromeda was talking about the plans and what they were originally going to do, and a couple of the complaints were specifically there aren't very many aliens, even though it's a new galaxy. And
do you mean like originally in the original development or post-release?
In the original development.
Okay.
So they were going to have many more aliens than just a few. And one of your specific complaints was that when you meet new species, there's no cultural change. They speak the same language immediately. There's nothing. That was also planned on you having to learn this new species. And that was all cut for budgetary reasons.
Because of course it was.
Yeah. So that we kind of figured that, but that was confirmed. That the budget was slashed down, basically, to the point where they had to put out what they had to put out. And that is not a good sign going forward. They'll have to, I mean, obviously, all EA can do is either continue to do what they're doing and slowly bleed off the fans of the genres that, maybe not even that slowly, of the RPG, huge single-player budget games, which they've kind of done already, or completely change attitudes and do other single-player stuff. One of the companies that kind of did that, Ubisoft, had an awful reputation, and now their games are generally pretty well thought of, so it can be turned around, but there's only been one EA game where they've put stuff into a single-player game. Anyway, the slashing of the Mass Effect Andromeda budget, not positive for the future of the Mass Effect franchise, especially because this remaster appears to have a small budget.
Well, I don't know how much budgets happen for remasters, but with Andromeda, I really wonder how much of it is from Andromeda kind of being a side thing for BioWare.
Was it though? It was intended, at least how it was pitched, and they may never had this intention. It was
not loved. It feels like it wasn't properly loved as a child, and it did. And because it wasn't loved as a child, it had issues throughout its entire growth.
I feel like the concept of Andromeda in its initial, development thought process is this is going to be the start of a new major franchise. And somewhere along the lines, it was the budget and was not put into it to make it what it could have been.
And the original idea for Andromeda, if I recall, was going to different planets, getting different material and stuff like that, and kind of trying to find a home.
And it had No Man's Sky elements of that kind of stuff. And they did not complete that.
Do you know what is the perfect Mass Effect Andromeda game then?
No Man's Sky?
Starflight.
Yeah, that didn't do well in our tournament.
Yeah, which is honestly heartbreaking because I played it this week.
How can you play that?
You can if you on Google just look up Starflight emulator.
Okay, and you just download an emulator.
You don't even have to download it.
It's just
some of them you can just
stream it because it's
the site.
Yeah, I could see that.
And so I played some of it. It is shocking actually to see how much of Mass Effect
I might have to do that at some point.
Inspired with it. Casey Hudson himself has said that Starflight was a decent motivation for it. This game, it doesn't tell you anything. you start the game as a mining person where you and your team of, you can create your own team of either humans, androids, different types of alien races, you set up the combination of what you want, and you go out and to explore different planets where you mine different material, and you're just a small thing like that. As you upgrade the ship and you go farther and farther out, you start just naturally start coming across a story of this ancient race that that came before us, of this solar flare that's going to wipe out the universe that we need to figure out how to stop.
Wait, a solar flare wipes out the universe?
Yeah.
You know solar flares aren't that powerful, right?
This was like 1980 something.
But they knew that in 1980 something.
Well, this is like a massive, like a universe size.
They're talking about like
thing.
maybe the detonation of a supermassive black hole, which I don't know if is even possible.
It's one that has happened multiple times. Well, I also don't want to go too much into it because I just kind of read the story and there are some spoiler stuff.
I will try to jump into that and we'll look at that. By the way, Starflight got the least votes
really
of any game in the tournament.
Yeah, which again is
in all fairness to Starflight,
is a great,
that group was one of the tougher ones.
Sure, and I didn't expect it to go well, but it really is. Like,
I don't think most people know what that game is.
Even if you want to it's not a game to do for like 10 minutes, but or if you just kind of actually want to check it out, that might work.
Yeah, I trying to match up how I fitting in games, and as soon as I don't know, I will try to get into it at one point, and that'll be an interesting discussion for a podcast. You want to do that? Want to set that up? Usually we never actually get to the things we're going to get to, but I think we might get to that one.
Or we could just like live stream that.
It could be. I think I would suck at live streaming. We might test something. All right, there's a couple more news points. They're all somewhat related. So there's a rumor going around that seems relatively confirmed that Anthem's fate will actually be decided this week.
I think it will be fine.
Okay, but what they're going to do is they need to decide whether or not they want to triple the staff and push it out or just cancel it. So that'll be interesting.
I think they're going to go along with it, because if they can it, I think that will give off a very bad perception.
Will it? I mean, like
everything else that's
the idea is then resource. Would you rather have a bunch more people jump on Anthem or jump on the new Mass Effect game?
I think the Mass Effect game is very far out.
I am aware of that, but I'm just saying, like, if you had an either or use, you have a budget, would you rather pull that budget and push it into Mass Effect or fix up Anthem?
I would like to see the budget of it, the revenue income.
They're not going to share any of that, man.
Yeah. Because, what you're talking about right now is production stuff, and that quite literally is my master degree.
Okay.
So if I were to actually be seeing some of that stuff, I could give like a decent, honest viewpoint of it. But as a fan, or just kind of as someone that's on the outside with everything, I would prefer that they keep Anthem going, because not only do I think that Anthem is a game that the concept and all that stuff with it was really well done, just maybe needed more. It had
enough issues. It definitely needed more time. It had enough issues with it. It certainly.
But I love the idea of it. I absolutely love the idea of it, and I feel like it can be done well. It just with all the
I feel like
stuff like that,
the biggest problem with Anthem's loop was the gameplay got stagnant too quick, and specifically because those enemies in the end game were so thick. Like, you didn't play much of Destiny. Like the original Destiny, you go in there and you face a boss and you just wail on it like with your gun, and it doesn't do anything. It was way worse than Anthem.
There was also the issue in the Division.
The Division
of the same thing.
Very first Division, the helicopter fight in the Division was the longest boss fight I've ever had, and you just shoot rockets at this helicopter and it did nothing. And it was like a 45-minute fight because I
mean,
I believe it scaled because I was doing it with people, and by the end of that, we were just laughing our ass off that it took so long. But
that kind of seems to be the common issue with looter shooters that we still have not been able to properly figure out, like come up with it's a well-rounded solution.
It's an overall concept in games where, like old school RPGs, which were mostly, I mean, they're not shooters, but those bosses have a crazy amount of hit points, and that's the way it works. So they're just translating it over to a shooter, and I don't think it works anywhere near as well because the concept of guns being powerful, that's kind of their thing. And clearly these guns, like, dude, in real life, if you were to shoot spitballs at somebody, they would go down faster than that helicopter went down with rockets.
What might be better is rather than have there be health, and focus kind of like on what Dark Souls does with their bosses, how there's different phases. And with shooters, you just, instead of it being 2 or 3 phases, have it be 5 or 6, maybe breaking off pieces of armor or certain aspects. Like once he gets hit a few times, he runs to a different area or pulls out a different gun, like reacts differently like that. Then that might help fix it, but that is a lot of design.
I feel like in shooters, the end game boss stuff is way more interesting if it's taking on an event or a group of people than it is taking on one really beefy dude. Like being attacked from all sides and needing to get out of that is more of a end game boss thing than just having this ridiculously beefy dude.
Did you play Far Cry 3?
No.
That one was pretty good, and the boss fights were pure kind of like cutscenes things.
Okay.
Which was interesting how they did it. I loved Far Cry 3. I loved it so much. I got all the achievements in it, and then when the remaster came out, got all the achievements in that one too.
Yeah, that's well thought of.
But the way they did their boss fights,
it's the first-person shooter thing. First-person shooters really need something. I mean, for me.
And Far Cry does the same thing that the Valve games do, which is it never leaves the first-person perspective at any point. Which Half-Life, Portal, and all those
Portal
games.
Is one of my favorite. Well, I don't say it's one of my favorite games, but I've ridiculously enjoyed that game, especially Portal 2. And you don't need to leave the first-person perspective, but it does.
Yeah, but that's something I don't know if people have ever realized is in Half-Life, in Portal, everything like that, every cutscene, everything that ever goes on is in first person.
I guarantee everyone realized, or most people realize that.
And Far Cry did the same kind of thing. And
so EA does have money, by the way.
Oh yeah, probably.
They just bought a mobile phone developer, Glue, for $2.1 billion.
What have they made?
Glue is the maker of Kim Kardashian Hollywood.
Oh, so they're jumping to the big leagues here.
Jesus.
Is that their only game?
No, they got some other ones.
Okay, cool. What else?
Let's look at it. It's either 2.1 or $2.4 billion. There are some other ones like, let's see. Covet Fashion, Deer Hunter, Diner Dash, Disney Sorcerer Arena, MLB Tap Sports Baseball, Design
I think I may
Home.
have heard of that one.
I've heard of a couple of those.
And these are all mobile games? And EA just bought them?
believe they're all free-to-play mobile games, too.
How much did Microsoft pay to get Minecraft?
That is a good question.
You said EA bought this company for $2.1 billion?
That is the reported number. It's either 2.1 or 2.5.
What was Minecraft? I think Minecraft was $2 billion?
Well, what did they purchase when they bought Microsoft? When
they bought Mojang, which Mojang is Minecraft.
Yeah, but it's a studio, right? So they got more than the IP. $2.5 billion for Minecraft.
Okay, so theoretically, in the eyes of EA, they see this company about the same worth as Microsoft's value of Mojang.
It might be from a financial standpoint.
Well, I mean,
I don't know what
mobile market while the gaming community
I feel
shits on the mobile market, honestly, the mobile gaming market is larger than the console gaming and stuff like that.
It's way more casual, and there's way more kids that you can trick into spending money.
Not just kids, but I mean adults as well.
And weird people.
And it's way more casual, way more accessible, and stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah, it's like, sure, GTA can sell $1 billion in 2 days with a $60 game and stuff like that.
But they're making
games,
more with the free to play. Well, not free to play, but the microtransaction model.
I don't know if they make more.
They made $500 million last year, dude. The game was out almost 10 years ago.
I would say for mobile games, I would say it's a more consistent sort of revenue because you're making money with ads as well and microtransactions, stuff like that.
Game developers are really, really sneaky about saying how they made money. They're very cagey about it. It'd be very interesting to know how these are doing financially.
But these people made what was the Kim Kardashian game?
Kim Kardashian Hollywood? I've seen that. Whatever. I don't know anything about that. I don't want to play it either.
Man, the Kardashians have
I don't want to get into this.
Massive ego. And something else that is also massive is the potential of our universe being a hypersphere.
I'm not done yet.
But hypersphere.
But I got one more.
God damn it.
By the way, those segues you're going with, they're not good at all.
They are
they are not
crafted.
good. They're not good at all.
All
they're
of
so
my segues
shoestring.
are handcrafted, made with the labor of love.
They're definitely
I don't
not
outsource.
Handcrafted. They're pulled directly out of your ass.
I don't outsource my tangents. They are all homegrown in my heart.
They're pulled directly out of your ass. By the way, the one more related note to that, EA bought BioWare for about $775 million. And that,
but how long ago was that?
That was 2008, and that also came with Pandemic Studios. So
one of the saddest things with EA, in my just personal opinion with it, was what they did to Westwood, which was the company that made Command & Conquer and stuff, and also Lucas Games that made like the Star Wars games.
I didn't think EA. I thought EA didn't do that. Wasn't that Disney?
I think oh wait, no, maybe that one was.
Yeah, that
Disney.
one was Disney, man. That had nothing to do with
Westwood was EA, and I love the Command & Conquer series.
Well, they're a flat-out business, and they run it more like a business than any other video game. That's not true. Activision does it too. So you have to look into other developers coming up, like CD Projekt Red, who came out and had a really good reputation. Now they don't. And they were just hacked and had all their assets stolen and held for ransom. That was the final news thing I wanted to get to.
Ooh. Well, I mean, there was something I was also going to quickly say. Is
you're not going to talk about that? You're just going to jump to whatever the fuck you're going to jump to?
No, it was Bungie was bought by a company. They were owned by Microsoft, but now they're their own publisher.
So I come up with a really good segue, and you ignore it entirely. So we're just ignoring each other's segues on this show.
No,
it was such a good segue.
It was still on topic of.
But I changed the topic.
But it was EA. I wanted to get that in with the EA one.
All right. Do you want to talk about you want to finish your thing? I want to try to look up the specific message.
So Bungie was owned by Microsoft as well, but now they're their own publisher. So I'm wondering,
I don't think they were ever owned.
I thought they were.
No,
Microsoft
they had
they
had an exclusive deal, right? And then the deal ended, and they got the exclusive deal with Activision. And now they want to be entirely self-funded. But I don't believe they were ever owned.
So, because I was thinking...
Because there are companies that are owned, like BioWare is owned.
I guess I would have to look more at the specifics of it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean,
but
if they were owned, they never would have let them go for free.
I don't. Well, I mean,
Why?
they didn't let them go for free. They took the Halo IP.
But they
took
paid for the Halo
from-
IP.
I
mean, that's-
no. Bungie made it.
No.
Before Microsoft owned
Bungie
them.
made it. Microsoft paid for it.
Yes.
So they owned it.
Yeah.
So that's
But they weren't.
They
the
didn't
creative...
take it. They owned. They bought it and owned it. But they bought the IP, not the developer.
I try to think like it seemed like it was on the same board of them owning Bungie.
It's different. Owning an IP, like for instance, with Insomniac was independent for a long time. They were officially bought recently, but they made a lot of PlayStation games, and Sony paid for them to make the games and therefore owned the IPs, as opposed to Insomniac making the IPs and owning them. They were owned by different things. It's a little bit of a different arrangement. Like for instance, they had like Spyro the Dragon, and EA owned that and sold it, and sold
EA owned Spyro?
Not EA, excuse me. Sony. So Sony bought or owned Spyro, owned Crash Bandicoot, and then sold them off to Activision, but did not own Insomniac at the time. It's a similar simulation to that. I hope I explained that okay.
Yeah, no. That was
all right. Now that I had a really good segue and you derailed it, the CD Projekt Red thing, the company that you could not touch and could not insult, literally 3 months ago, and now it get dumped on to the point where they're literally attacked, not just metaphorically and with words and stuff. That's how fast things can turn.
Insults over Twitter.
My favorite thing when I was like looking at this, like a lot of people would say, "Hey, before Cyberpunk comes," they're like, "Dude, CD Projekt Red is the new BioWare."
But what were you meaning by them being attacked? Because you might want to explain that a little bit
So
more.
what happened is they got hacked.
There you go.
And
because, it wasn't like their studio
was bombed.
Was attacked.
That would be
or
different.
anything.
Yeah, like
they got hacked.
Thank you for putting me back on track. That's not normally.
Well,
I was getting
was kind of a thing.
I was getting into it. So some dude or dudes, basically what they did is they grabbed the source codes for Cyberpunk 2077, Witcher 3, and Gwent, and they're now holding it hostage and saying, "Hey, this is very common with a lot of stuff. They need to pay them, or they're going to sell it all or leak it to gaming journalism." The message that they have is, "You have been epically pwned. We have also encrypted all of your servers." This is something that would not have been done before the release of Cyberpunk, is my point.
Well, maybe. Studios do get hacked at some points.
Like
not
Naughty
just
Dog
studios,
was hacked, right? Where they
films and
Naughty Dog with before the release of The Last of Us 2, but they didn't
hacked before.
They didn't hold it for ransom. They just leaked it.
That is fair.
They just leaked it online. Like these dudes are legitimately trying to profit.
I mean, that just seems more criminal.
It is totally. It is like 100% only criminal. Your public image will go down the shittier even more, and people will see how shitty your company functions. That is a direct quote from the people who stole this stuff. Investors will lose trust in your company, and the stock will dive even lower. Yeah, this is an attack. It's a little bit different.
These
guys
is much more of a criminal threat than what you're telling me earlier on.
Well, I didn't get into it. That's why I wanted to like. It's.
Well,
it's
before you even
way
recorded,
criminal.
You were.
I just noted it. Yeah. No, this is bad. But the point being that, like, boy, man, just within this is how quickly your reputation go down, and it is a relation to Electronic Arts and BioWare. Like, man, their reputation's down. We're like, dude, could you imagine like mid Mass Effect 2 something like? Could you believe that the reputation of BioWare would go in the position where they get attacked like this? And that's my point with CD Projekt Red. After The Witcher 3, they were fucking golden for a while, and now something like this happens, and you see the comments online like, "Ha, they deserve it." You're like, "What? They deserve it?"
I mean,
they deserve
remember, it's like, die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Right? I don't know. Whatever it was.
I don't believe that's a fictional movie.
Well, technically, it is a real movie. but it is
yeah,
a
you know what? You're
fictional.
Right. Fictional. It is a real movie.
I mean, but the quote is still there. Like, I'm very confused as what that stance was.
All right. Should I start a GoFundMe to buy Mass Effect?
I mean, how much do you think that would be?
That's what I was asking.
$50?
The range of well, first of all, I think Mass Effect makes money just on merchandise right now.
Okay, so more.
So
than
they
$50.
literally have to do nothing, and they can make money. I put on something on Twitter, and the legitimate guesses are between 120 million and 500 million for Mass Effect, which I think 500 is high. I mean, this is imagine the price has to be what you would take it like you have to entice EA to give it up.
But why would you want to buy Mass Effect?
Why would I want to buy Mass Effect?
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of question is that?
Well, I mean, like,
then I'd make.
What would you do with it?
But then I could make the next Mass Effect game, assuming I have money to make Mass Effect.
But do you think you could do that? Like,
this is a total fantasy. I don't have that kind of money.
Well, I know.
And if I did have that kind of money,
along that fantasy.
Let's say I had $1 billion, and I would buy, if I had $1 billion, like just $1 billion, I still wouldn't buy Mass Effect. I'd do something actually good with it, or spend it all on boats and hookers. I don't know. How many hookers could you buy for $1 billion? That's creepy.
Well, it depends on what quality you're getting.
Like one? That's amazing.
Probably at least one.
At least one.
I mean,
but
that's some.
The point, we could start a GoFundMe to buy Mass Effect and then do what we want with it. But we'd need like $200 million probably.
That is a lot.
Yeah. It's not happening.
You know what is also a large number?
All right,
is
we're going to
let potential infinite of the universe being a hypersphere.
All right, I'll let you go.
Sweet.
I'm really unenthusiastic about this. I need to do better. Tell
Tell
me about it, Tucker. This sounds amazing.
So first off, before I even explain what a hypersphere is, what is your understanding of the fourth dimension?
Absolutely nothing. In fact, I'm not convinced we'll ever be able to understand it properly. So.
Wait. What do you mean not understand it properly?
We do not have the mental capacity to properly see the fourth dimension.
I mean, that's fair. That is
when it exists.
Well, we definitely have some theories of it, all the way up to the 11th dimension.
I could say if or when, like you're never going to be able to prove it because you just can't see it. So.
Well, yeah, but there are a belief that there are up to 11 dimensions. Anything beyond 11,
there's also a belief that the world is flat.
Is what?
There's also a belief that the world is flat. But go ahead and continue.
Those people are stupid.
Okay.
But so fourth dimension would be, so if there was a two-dimensional plane and there were people that lived on the two-dimensional, they would have two things. They would have height and length. They would have no width. They would be able to move across this 2D plane, and that is their universe. If there was a box, and inside that box was a circle, the two-dimensional creature would be able to move around all sides of the square and not see the circle because they are blocked at all points of it. But us being a three-dimensional creature, we can see not only all four sides, but we'd be able to see the circle as well. And we could even pick it out of the square without interfering with the lines at all. Now, if we were to get a cube and open it up and put a sphere inside and close it, we look all around at all six sides, we would not be able to see the sphere at any point. But a fourth dimensional being would see not only all six sides, but would be able to see the sphere inside the box and be able to take it out without opening or interfering with the box itself. So the different dimensions, a 0-point dimension is just a dot. It is just a single dot in space. A line with one dimension has length. 2 dimensions has height and length. And 3 dimensions has height, length, and width. And then the 4th dimension is height, length, width, and I think depth. I don't know exactly the right one for it.
It's fictional.
But it's real.
Is it?
All right, well,
you can't prove it. It's fictional is not the right word. Hypothetical.
Yes, it is a theory with science of that. But, so, the theory that we live in a hypersphere. So a hypersphere is a 4-dimensional ball. And the theory is that our universe is a hypersphere. So our universe is two things. It is homogeneous, which means that it looks the same no matter where you pick. If you had the entire universe laid out and you were to pick like a section of it at a large enough scale, the universe looks the same for the most part. There's no, like, it just looks the same. And so it's homogeneous, and it's also isotropic, which means that in any direction that you look in the universe, again, on a large enough scale, it looks the same. If you we're on Earth and we look up at the sky, and then if you were to turn 40 degrees and look up at another spot, it looks the same for the most part.
Does it?
Well, I mean, the stars will be aligned in different areas and so on, but it will look the same.
I don't agree with that, although I don't know in which way you're... I mean, there's different galaxies in different shapes, and that's not the same.
Well, yeah. I'm meaning on a large scale, not on an individual
Still
scale of that.
A different pattern on all the views of the universe that I've seen.
But, so...
I want to also point out that you were going on for a long time, and I am listening to you. And if this was the other way around, you would be looking at puppies right now.
Sure.
Okay.
But, and with the universe, how it is expanding and going on, that there's no center of the universe. Whenever we've shown the universe, we've always kind of had ourselves as the center of it.
I don't think that's true either, man.
Then there is no center of the universe.
Are you sure? Because according to what was the Big Bang Theory and is like an expansion theory, there is a point where everything is coming from, and that would be the center.
The Big Bang, the idea with the Big Bang, from what we've been able to figure out, is that it didn't happen in one place, but the Big Bang happened at all places at once.
And I should also point out that this is also a theory and cannot be proved because the math doesn't add up to the way the universe works. Like we have rules that govern laws and stuff, and the universe doesn't operate within those. So the rules are wrong. So this is all like super hypothetical, but go ahead and continue.
But the idea is that so with the Big Bang, it didn't happen exactly with one place. It happened at multiple places at once.
I haven't actually seen that, but I believe 100% that there are people who have put thought and math into that and are smarter than me. So go, yeah.
But because of how it happened at all places at once rather than kind of one spot, there's no center. And because we also can't see any edge of the universe too, because we can't find any edge, we can't find a center, and because we can't find a center.
The idea behind not finding an edge is that every galaxy is moving further away from us, and
they're not moving away from us.
Well, they are, but not directly away from us. They're moving. I mean, that's assuming we're sitting still. They're moving in opposite directions. They're moving away from each other, but the edge of the universe that we can see, the idea is that those galaxies and our galaxy are moving away from each other at faster than the speed of light, and therefore light cannot travel back to us to the point where we can see it.
Well, when you're saying that they're expanding, are you meaning with intrinsic expansion, or...
You know what? I'm not 100% sure.
So, I
want to point out, though, that you're making points, and I feel like you're wrong, but go ahead and continue.
The way that it can be explained. So how you said that the universes are expanding away from us. They aren't exactly expanding away from us, but everything is expanding away from
a certain point.
Everything. Not a starting point, but everything is expanding away from everything.
Yeah, I was saying from us, from the standpoint of us looking at from our perspective when we're standing. You are correct in the fact that they're not moving away from us because they don't give a shit about us. They're just moving.
Well, if you think of it like if a loaf of bread with raisin in it, as you heat it up and as the bread grows and expands and the raisins move away from each other, they're not moving away from one center raisin, but rather as the loaf of bread is expanding, the raisins are moving with the bread. They are expanding with the bread, and that is kind of what our universe is doing.
That is the current theory for it, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense otherwise. Yeah, that would be a dark matter, dark energy, trying to figure out what that is.
And as things expand, our observable universe expands, but we're not moving through space. We're moving with space.
So therefore, space is kind of the wrong word. Space implies nothingness, and it's not nothing. There is something there. We just can't see it or detect it. And
to continue with
can I make a guess here? So you're saying that is part of the fourth dimension?
It is part of the evidence that we are on a hypersphere.
Okay.
Well, that we're on a hypersphere. There's also the thing that the universe is flat. But when you're saying that
don't do it, Tucker.
The universe is what?
The universe is flat, but the world is not flat.
No, the universe. Well, when you say that,
I'm going to be a dick about it. Sorry.
Absolutely. The universe is flat. There is local curvature through mass warps through speculative time, general relativity, but the universe is flat, but it's not 2D flat.
I want to
3D flat.
Point out that you're making these sound like absolutes, and they are absolutely not absolutes. But according to this theory, the universe is flat.
Yes.
So
flat.
you're saying like it's 100% a fact, and that's not true.
Yes.
Because 100% of fact means proven and tested, and it's literally impossible to do that.
The universe is 3D flat.
Okay. You're making. I see what point you're making. I have a feeling it's going to be incredibly hard for people to follow. This is why I wanted to push this to the end of the podcast. You're like, okay, it's 10 minutes in. Let's go on this really side rant.
Yeah, but so the universe is 3D flat. So a piece of paper is 2D flat. It just flat.
Yeah, when you said the word flat, that's what threw me because flat.
Yeah, and I was trying to explain.
Yeah, from a 4D perspective, the 3D would be flat.
Kind of. So the surface of a sphere. If you were to have like a soccer ball or something like that, the surface of the sphere is two-dimensional, but it's still curved. So if you were to walk on a parallel on a piece of paper, which is 2D flat, and had two parallel lines, they will never cross.
I would argue that you need a different word than flat in that case, but I understand the point you're making.
If you were to have two people walk on a parallel line on a sphere, on the surface of a sphere, that they could be walking a straight parallel line, but they will eventually cross paths into each other. That is what helps us know the difference between like paper being 2D flat and something being flat but on a curved surface. So both of them are 2D, but the curve changes what you experience. And what scientists have done is they have shined lights out across our universe and have seen that the parallel lines never cross. That the parallel lines stay within the same distance away from each other, showing us that the universe is 3D flat.
You are aware that if you shine a light out in the universe, it literally cannot get all the way across the universe, though, right?
I'm just going off what scientists have been...
I'm just letting you know, like it takes too fucking long. It's light. It's not... I mean, literally, you shine a light... if any human was to shine a light, it literally could not get all the way across the galaxy. We have not existed that long. And the galaxy is a very small part of the universe.
Well, yeah, but we don't need to measure the entire galaxy of it. We can measure
you're talking about the entire
segments
universe not intersecting. Like, you can't do that, right?
You can measure segments of it and get its
I
relation
feel
towards
like
that.
I'm poking too many holes in your theory, but
Well,
there's
I'm going
also
through the research that I went
I'm
through.
assuming that at this point, the people who came up with this research would have an answer to my questions, and you are relaying it to me. So I'm asking specific questions that you'd really, really, really need to know the subject to answer.
Better on that, yeah.
I
mean,
I'm giving
having
you about
some
5 more minutes. I'm going to check the numbers and see how many people are actually still listening at this point, because I feel like you're killing the entire base off. There's some people who are really interested in this, but the majority of people
I'm trying to
aren't.
explain how the theory behind the universe being a hypersphere.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that no one cares.
Well,
We're
still going on
we're
with
gonna
it.
find out.
So-
Yeah, the whole point of this is to be entertaining, Tucker, right? So
yes, and this theory is kind of interesting.
just to a small percentage of people.
Well, I mean, some people were talking about it in the Discord chat, and people are interested with that there.
Okay.
So, with a few of the ideas, our universe is 3D flat, that it is homogeneous, so it looks the same about anywhere that you would pick. It doesn't have an edge, it doesn't have a center. It is constantly expanding regardless of where you look. So a hypersphere has 4 dimensions. When we are living in the 3rd dimension, so with an extra one, it makes it a bit more difficult. But if you're thinking about it instead of the hypersphere as an entire object, thinking it more as the surface of the hypersphere. So the surface of a sphere with math, it is called a 2-sphere because it's the 2nd dimension. But the object of a ball, or the object of the sphere, all bits of it, not just the surface, is called a 3-ball. So the surface of a sphere is called a 2-sphere. All bits of that object, including the depth and the inside of it, is called a 3-ball. If you zoom in onto the ball far enough, and something were to live on that, it would look flat. If there was a flat kind of creature living on the surface of the ball, on the 2-dimensional sphere of it, that it would be able to go up and down, it could go east-west, it can move around like that, but it would not be able to go up or down, or depth-wise. It wouldn't be able to change that, because the 3rd dimension doesn't exist. The possibility of this 2-dimensional creature.
Wouldn't you not be able to confirm that, though?
What do you mean?
If you're staring at something from far enough away, you can't really confirm that it's on a flat surface, right? Because from your perspective, it that's the way it looks.
Well, you can if you were to walk across it and measure yourself as you were to take right angles.
You literally cannot walk that far. The universe is too big.
But you don't need to walk the entire distance. You can walk segments of it and get a understanding of that. But
if you have the instruments for it, I suppose.
But this 2D creature, this flatland type creature that is living on this sphere, it is living on a 3D object while itself being only a 2-dimensional creature, because it only lives on the surface of the object, not within any other part of it. So take that to the next level. Instead of a 3-ball, you now have a 4-ball. And instead of a 2-sphere as the surface of it, the surface of a 4-ball would be 3-sphere. So our universe would be on the surface and only the surface of this 4D hypersphere. We can move across all 3 dimensions. We can move up, down, left, right. We can move all around in 3 dimensions, but it is only the surface. We can't actually get any deeper within the object because that would be part of the 4th dimension. And our universe is just purely the surface of a hypersphere.
Okay. I feel like I'm disagreeing with too many of the core premises of that, but I'm assuming that the people who made up this theory know more than I do. So,
but
you're still going?
Yes, because this theory.
So I was going to give you 20 minutes. You were almost out of time.
But how many times did you stop me? And
I don't care. The whole subject is 20 minutes.
But so we've measured that our universe is exceptionally flat. On a sphere, if you were to walk a straight line and then you were to take two 90-degree turns and then you would end up back at the start, that is something that is impossible to do on a truly flat surface. You cannot walk a straight line, take two 90-degree turns, and end up back where you started. That is only possible on something that is curved. But when you do that, it would create a triangle, which the angles of the triangle would add up more to 180 degrees. There's a book in 1886 by Edwin Abbott called Flatlands, which is a satirical look on the Victorian London. And I read that book as it explains this two-dimensional society. And there is a sequel of that book that came out in 1956, originally written in Dutch, wasn't translated until 1965, but it talks about the same thing of this flat universe, but they discover that they are actually on this two-dimensional society and universe, everything like that, discover that they are on a larger three-dimensional sphere, or a three-ball, because they discover a triangle that has more than 180 degrees, which is, again, something impossible on a truly flat surface. And essentially, we've measured triangles in our universe using the cosmic microwave background, and the angles so far have equaled about 180 degrees, which kind of does poke a hole in the idea of the hypersphere. And as well as like some of the other things of it, just the fact that the universe has no center doesn't mean that it is on a hypersphere, because the universe is continually expanding, but it doesn't need to... It can be expanding into itself, and some intrinsic expansion is what I think the proper term of it is, but it's that it doesn't need the space to exist already there. It can expand within itself, or not within itself, but it expands infinitely as a flat, or a 3D flat plane, as it constantly expands. But this idea that we live on a hypersphere, I absolutely love it. And another way to think about a fourth dimensional object is the zeroth dimension is a point. It is a dot in the universe. The one dimension to the line, that it is a length. Now the length, that line, is made up by two 0-point dimensions. The line has a start and an end point, which are 0 dimensions. A square, which has the height and length, is made up of 4 one-dimensional lines. So a line is made of 2 0 points, and a square is made of 4 one-dimensional lines. A cube is made up of 6 squares. So the three-dimensional object has 6 squares on it. That would make a tesseract, a fourth-dimensional object, would have 8 cubes on it as the outside. So the way that...
Tucker, I have given you 22 minutes now, and
Yeah.
I believe we have no one left listening. But this is a good test. So if you're still listening, let me know in the comment section, and I'm going to look at the listener engagement to see if I ever let Tucker do this again. This was a good experimental version because Scott's not on.
I think that is incredible.
Yeah, the problem is I don't believe that this is the right spot. This is a kind of a video game podcast, and this is not
a nerd podcast to talk about the possibility of the fourth dimension.
It is specifically a video game nerd podcast, though, or a video game culture nerding podcast, and that probably is too much. So that's going to be interesting to look into the comment section.
But I've been reading.
I'm aware of that. Yeah.
I've read the sequels. There were
Tucker.
I
guess what? I'm going to the
Elusive Man. The Elusive Man. The man who's the voice actor for him?
You talking about Sheen? It's Martin Sheen,
Martin
right?
Sheen. He is in a Flatland movie. He is a voice as the main character in one of the movies. And I watched that. That was the 2007 version. There was another version of it, which was weird as hell. And that one was really close to the book, where essentially there's like
So Tucker, I am going to completely cut you off now. It's too much even for me. So I don't know if we have enough time to still talk about the Mass Effect recommendation tournament.
We kind of did we not?
We talked about one specific poll. We're now into round 2. If you want to check, I'll be brief about it. If you want to check my Twitter at Minius GC, I'll have the stuff up. The latest one was the most interesting one. It's the Group P, which is the final thing. Was a competition between Doom Eternal, Everspace, FTL, and XCOM Enemy Unknown. And FTL got bounced by Doom Eternal, which does not make any sense to me. That is also the only. I mean, what do you look at it from a recommendation to a Mass Effect fan standpoint? What does Doom Eternal have over FTL? It's a single-player AAA game.
It has recognition.
Yeah, but no, let's say you were legitimately trying to give a Mass Effect fan a recommendation.
You know, FTL would be a better. I mean, that's my argument with Starflight.
Yeah, although I
also,
do not believe
FTL,
I do not believe Starflight
would...
is a better recommendation than Horizon Zero Dawn. Not even close. Sure. So that's so deserved to get its ass kicked.
Well, I think Starflight might be a better recommendation than Horizon Zero Dawn. Just because the game is more recent, but does that make its value less?
It depends on what you. Game? This is the whole thing is subjective, which is the point. Depends on what you like about Mass Effect.
Absolutely.
So if you like the characters and the dialogue and stuff 3D, like that, you will not get that out of Starflight.
If you like the fact that it's 3D, then
oh my god,
but Starflight.
Oh my god, I'm going to have to stop the podcast, Tucker. Why would you do that? Why are you still going?
So
Why?
Starflight is
Why?
In 80.
Why? Why?
Well, I was just saying, like, if you
why?
Because some people don't like those flat, two-dimensional. Like, that's too old retro for them.
Okay.
Although Starflight,
I really do think no one's listening.
Detailed. They're still listening. Starflight is extremely detailed. Like, you have to fully scan planets multiple different ways before you can even land on it and make sure you're ready to go. Like, it's really interesting. It is really a role-playing game in space.
All right, so Starflight's out. There are 32 games left in round 2. Round 2 is going to take a little bit. Round 1 almost took 3 weeks. But that
was also
partially because I didn't get one up every day. So we will continue to go over this over the course of the next few weeks. All of these matchups are more interesting than the previous ones. Like, for instance, the one that is just up and up right now, Cyberpunk, is going up against Witcher 3. With also The Last of Us and No Man's Sky in there, too. But so there's basically there's actually good matchups. Group 4 is a really good matchup. It's got Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Knights of the Old Republic, and the Old Republic all in it. Only 2 can move on.
Yeah, I was going to ask if only 2 are still the ones moving forward.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. 2 move forward. Only the last round determines the winner.
How many will be in the last round? Will it be
It'll be 4?
Or will it be a 1v1?
It'll be 4.
Okay, math.
Should I do a 1v1? I feel like I've done 31 polls, and at that point we're done.
Maybe if first place is a little close, I would say.
What if we say within
like 4%,
4% or 5%? We'll make it 5%. If they're within 5%, we'll do a runoff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if we do a runoff with that, we can do a runoff with the other 2, just so we like which one gets third.
I don't know if that matters enough, but
it matters. Everything matters in it. All game are worth their salt.
Okay. I'm just saying it doesn't matter from the purposes of what I'm asking in this question. We've already made the point and run a poll on it.
We don't want the games to feel left out.
Third place games are generally frowned upon in the world of athletics because no one cares who finishes third. They only care who finishes first.
Well, I mean, so if you were to make a top 10 list of something, do you only do the number 1?
But this is not a top 10 list. It's a tournament. If you were to do a top 10 list, there would be stuff that would make it passed around.
People still care about that, the other stuff of it.
Okay. It'll be interesting. Actually, I think maybe at the end of this, we'll put together a top 10 list. Specifically, the 3 of us, including Scott, will have to come up with 10 games that we recommend and come up with an order. and then that'll be an official thing. All right. We are slowly winding down, but it is time for my favorite segment, the Mass Effect Obscure Character of the Week. Have you ever recommended an Obscure Character of the Week?
I did.
And
the person was so obscure.
There was no dialogue, right?
Yes. That is how... I'm even making my obscure character references to obscure.
I am giving you a goal to come up with an obscure character of the week at some point in the next month. Because I'm almost done with my Tuchanka run. You can recommend characters, by the way, for the obscure characters of the week. And I
already know the character.
You're going to do it off the air because I have to look it up and confirm it.
Oh, yeah. I already know the character, though.
Okay, good. It didn't even take you a month.
No.
You can recommend some stuff yourself by emailing accidentallycasual@gmail.com or sending me a tweet. This week's obscure character of the week is Char, who you actually do not meet on Tuchanka. You meet on Ilium, where he's spouting poetry. And in this clip, he is slightly in the background.
Oh, he's the poetry Krogan?
He's the poetry Krogan. His girlfriend is, I think, is Iraba. I guarantee they go through real pronunciation of that.
What do you want? Sorry, that damn Krogan's love poems are getting on my nerves.
Is that Krogan bothering you?
No, you don't need to hurt him or anything. He's harmless. Which, I know, Krogan, so it's hard to believe. His name is Char. We're kind of dating, but, well, we're on a break. And he's trying to show me how sensitive he is by, well, wooing me. It's really bad.
The Asari, right? He's the one dating the Asari and then he dies in the third game?
He does die. He dies no matter what.
Oh, dude, you can't save him or anything?
No, you can't. So the only impact you have on him is you can convince his girlfriend to take him back or not take him back. Either way, he still gets killed and sends her a message.
Well, I mean, with that in mind, wouldn't it just be better to convince her not to get back with him?
But then he spends the rest of his life devastated and is hung up on her.
Well, he's going to die. But,
but he lived a little bit more. But if you do convince him to get together, she's pregnant when he dies.
Oh, okay. That changes things a little then.
Anyway, I think the funniest part of their story is, so you convince him to get back together, and he takes her to Tuchanka, and she's like, "Oh my god, this is such a fucking dope. I made a mistake." It's the funniest shit.
Wait, so his name's Char?
Char, yeah.
So, speaking of Char, a question that was
we are
in
winding down the show, Tucker.
Podcast was, what would Mass Effect squad mates pick as their starter character? And someone said Jack would pick Charizard just because of the fire stuff, and then someone was saying that one person, the Krogan would pick either Blastoise. They would kind of be like that main.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to this conversation.
Half Mass Effect characters, half Pokemon came up into chat, where one of the people in chat, VJ, drew Mass Effect characters as Pokemon. It was awesome.
I should start posting my artwork in there.
Yes,
nope.
You should.
I posted my artwork. No one gives a shit about my artwork, mainly because it's awful.
People have drawn artwork of you and me. Again, VJ drew a thing of like you yelling at me and me being the cat.
That's basically all I do.
Yeah. You should poke your head in there a bit
more.
So
this is also the show as an example of what happens when I don't yell at him. He'll go on for 22 minutes about.
I can tell you, some people were excited about that.
No,
that is
I guarantee that there were some people who really enjoyed that. I just think it's less than 5%.
But I think it's fast. Well, it also depends on how many people were still listening beforehand.
Oh, you don't think our news segment was good?
Fascinating. Well, it just depends on when they cut off. Like a person leaves when they.
This is one you can actually behind the scenes YouTube information. You can go through and look at videos and see when the percentage of people dropped off. So I will see if the curve is different than normal. But you can check us out, our Discord community out. There's a link in the description box. We take questions, topic suggestions, and obscure character of the week nominations there. Really, the better place to put it is accidentallycasual@gmail.com or send me a Twitter thing, because there's generally the Discord is a discussion, not really a message board post. It's a live discussion. How many people are in there now again? There were 68.
68.
So you could be the special number.
Yeah.
Jumping in. If you want us on Twitter, I'm at Minius GC. Tucker is at Appy Tucker. Scott, who is not here with us and is stuck at work and is unhappy about it,
He is with us
is at
in
BioWare
spirit.
And we will be back next week.
And speaking of him being with us in spirit, I went to the supermarket and I got this tea. And it was Star Wars, it's like Star Wars Mandalorian themed.
Tea?
And it's in this unique looking thing. It's like Baby Yoda is there with the Mandalorian looking at him, and the tea is the child green tea. And then there were other ones that was like the Mandalorian, which was a black tea, and then other people as well.
I would like to point out, by the way, that you failed and let me get all the way through my ending before you interrupted it. So now this is at the end of the show.
I was being kind.
No, you weren't. You're being a dick.
I was also reading about the Feynman diagram about escaping a black hole. Because that was also in a sequel
Tucker, we're
of
done, by the
Flatlands
way.
called Flatterland.
I'm hitting the stop button on the record.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.